How you doing, everybody? I'm Ken Bykoff, and welcome to the Peegs Postgame Live. Indiana, 72-68. They fall to UCLA here at Simon Scott Assembly Hall, and the Hoosiers, they simply couldn't get the job done. Just could not get the job done. Uh, and that is it's just so incredibly frustrating to watch because this is a team that had opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to win the ball game, and they just could not get over the hump, whatever it is that you want to go with, because they had every opportunity. It is another loss for the Hoosiers, one that stings because, again, they had opportunities along the way. 812-393-2600 is the number. The Hoosiers uh, simply dug themselves too big a hole ultimately to get the job done, and that's what cost them tremendously. As I reconnect to our call in here, 812-393-2600. I want to hear from you. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody. It is 11 o'clock on Valentine's Day after an IU loss, so I understand completely if you are not uh, jacked and excited to talk IU basketball in another one. This is a game that Indiana uh, got down by 10, fought back in the second half, and I give them a lot of credit for that. Look, Indiana played zone very effectively for most of this game, and those kind of changes have been very important for this. We have a couple of calls in now. I'm very excited. Hopefully, this is we haven't lost them. So I'm going to cut right to a caller just in case that there's any kind of issues with that. Caller, if I could have your name, where you're from, and what you got. Caller, are you there? I can't hear him, and he's gone. Ah, these struggles are killing me. They're just killing me, folks. But you know what? We could always adapt and adjust. You try to get things set up, and it just is not going as well as we need it to. But I'm here for it. So, Indiana uh, really had a tough time when it came to uh, defending the three in this one. UCLA goes 9 of 20 from 3 point range, 45%. Uh, and I was again I impressed that Indiana was able to battle back into this game, and you cannot say that Mike Woodson hasn't doesn't have the support of his team, because he does. And to me, that's the frustration of this, because they do have what they need to win ball games. The problem, of course, is that uh, they're just not executing late. And you'll hear in just a little bit Mike Woodson talk about the um, those late game situations that that they had opportunities, and he does another one of those things where he
To connect. Click connect to show now.
sorry guys.
You are connected as the host.
All right,
Welcome, host.
all
You are
right,
now in the host room and can manage your callers from the call-in studio web interface.
all right. That's what it sounds like when I
Audio
connect if I hit.
recording is on.
Excellent.
Dual channel.
So, like I said, we have a caller. There he is.
Hey,
I could hear the caller. There he is. I'm sorry, everybody, that I've been having that problem. A caller, what's your name? Where you from? And what you got?
yeah, hey, it's Big Al from Fort Wayne.
How you doing tonight?
Uh, Hey, man, I've been better. I've been better. You know, I think the heart of it is, excuse me, is that we're just not tough. right? Our toughest guy came from another program, and that's Luke Goody. Um, Obviously, they instilled in him a toughness that we don't have. Our next coach has to instill this accountability and this toughness um, for us to get the little things done to win on the close game. In a close game, it's going to come down to one play, two plays, and we just don't have it. We have not um, had that all year. And again, it goes back to coaching. Um, I think Woody has been a great guy for Indiana over the years. I have nothing against him, but you need to know the lane that you're in, and he's just not in his lane. Um, what are you thinking about the next coach? Who are you thinking should be the next coach?
If I had to pick, is that what you're asking?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because what you can convince people to do and what you can get is two different things. The guy that I would spend a lot of time with, obviously Dusty May is somebody that I would try to get, but also Scott Drew. And now Scott Drew's been at Baylor for a long time. And sometimes you get to a point in your career where you want a new challenge, and this might be the kind of challenge that he's looking for. I would work real hard to try to get him interested in coming to IU and talking to his people. One of the beautiful things about the situation that Indiana finds itself in is a lot of those back channel conversations can happen pretty openly now, and because
Okay.
you
Yep.
have an opening. There's other situations where coaches will tell you, or their agents will tell you, call me when you have an opening. Well, that's when you're thinking of getting rid of a guy and want to get your next guy start to those conversations started. I can guarantee this much. This is a team that has and a program that probably had some of this background going for a while. Just at least Scott Dolson in his mind had to be thinking, even as early as last summer, that hey, you know what, we're going to bring it back for another opportunity, but we have to keep this in mind. So to me, that is you could start to now at least talk to people more openly. So Dusty May, Scott Drew, those are the guys that I would look to and try to kind of put the full court press on.
Do you think that conversation has already happened?
Well, and this is pure speculation on my part on this one. I think agents have been spoken to and interest gauged with a lot of different coaches because that's the first step. It gives a layer of plausible deniability for a coach to say, "Well, I haven't talked to Indiana." No, you're right, you haven't talked to Indiana, but that doesn't mean some representatives of you may not have. But sure, I those kind of feelers have gone out. They have to. This is how the process works. So I would expect that would be something that has already happened. Yes.
Right. Hey, one last question. I'll let you take another caller. What was the climate like at the end of the game?
It was. I
Like
mean,
being there, was it a big letdown? Because we see what we see on TV, and they
right.
cut the commercials, and they go. What was the atmosphere like?
Look, these people here were doing their best to try to get IU, over the finish line. There's a lot of support, a lot of screaming. People haven't given up on this team. Now, the upper balcony was completely empty. And that isn't totally shocking, it being Friday and it being Valentine's Day and all of that kind of stuff. But I mean, that really stood out to me just how open the upper balcony on this is the east side of Assembly Hall was. But the atmosphere was there. I did want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about Luke Goody, and that was something that occurred to me during the game. Uh, and I've thought before because this is something that has happened. It happened under Tom Crean, and that is some of the guys who are performing at the highest level uh, spent a couple of years in other programs. And
Okay.
the other programs go ahead and help build that culture a little bit. And look, there's a lot of transfers on this team, and this is the new college basketball world. But you don't have a homegrown IU guy who has kind of developed that toughness along the way. Anthony Leal has some of it, but he hasn't played enough to really be one of those leaders. But there's no question that Luke Goody Scored 10 points in the first, 2.5 minutes of the second half, and really kind of sparked Indiana to not just roll over. And that meant something to this team.
Right. Well, I will tell you this: on Valentine's Day, there's no better aphrodisiac than taking your girl to a IU game. So, thanks for all you do, man.
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. 812-393-2600 is the number. We have another caller. I'm going to go ahead and bring him on, or him or her. Give me your name, where you're from, and what you got.
Ken, Neil Hood from Kansas City. How you doing?
Hey, Neil, how you doing?
Oh, buddy, not doing too well after that game. I tell you, much like that last caller talking about Valentine's Day, I had my bride Amanda Hood from Kansas City spend her Valentine's Day watching that game. She tells me that my varsity club donation is going to have to come with a half-off voucher for a divorce lawyer if I make her endure another season like this. Yeah, frustrating loss. Not the first frustrating loss we've had this year. And tell you what, it could have been the same scenario as Michigan State on Tuesday. Michigan State taught terribly. They helped us win that game.
Sure.
UCLA, what they shoot tonight? Like 50%?
47.3%, yes.
Yeah, and our guards can't get anything going. Now, I say that with an asterisk because it's hard not to like Goody on a night like tonight, right? That's kind of why you brought this guy here. Um, I won't bug you too much
Second
about
second
what you
half,
think about.
second half, Luke Goody. First half, Luke
Yeah,
Goody was not very good. Second half, Luke Goody was good.
second half he turned it on, and it's good to see an Indiana kid have a game like that in a second half where it's close. Um, I I I think that Michigan's going to redo Dusty's contract around the Big Ten tournament. I just don't see Scott Drew coming back to Indiana. I know there's ties there, but he's just too far removed. Mark Cronin, his name showed up on a lot of hot boards. Um, kind of like when we had Michigan here last Saturday. Hard not to watch him a little bit closer tonight.
Sure.
I can't say that I'd be excited if he's somebody that moves into the final pool of candidates that here we're talking about in another 4, 5, 6 weeks. I
Yeah.
don't know your thoughts.
No, I don't get jazzed for Mick Cronin either. He's
Yeah.
he's a solid coach. Make no mistake, he's a solid coach. Would he be an upgrade from what we have right now? Yeah, but I don't know if that's really what's going to move the needle and get people super excited. Now, who that guy is. Obviously, Brad Stevens is basically taking his name out of the running right now. So it does come down to Dusty or, Buzz Williams or a couple of other guys. The key to remember here is there's a lot of coaches out there that just have a better feel for what college basketball is about in a way that Mike Woodson has never really developed it very well. I do give Woody credit for this. Over the past couple of games, basically since the announcement, he's been willing to do some different things than he previously seemed to have been willing to do. Indiana plays zone defense pretty solid. They're pretty good at it for long stretches. And the question to me is, why didn't we see more of that earlier in the season? Was it just stubbornness? Was it was he not listening to people that were suggesting these things to him? Because tonight you had a little bit of a zone press. You had a 2-3 zone. You'd have a 1-3-1 that then dropped down to a 2-3. You had some different things that they were doing, and that's the kind of stuff we haven't really seen. So I think it was important to see that step, and it's unfortunate that it didn't work out and end up in a win today.
Oh yeah, the zone, the 2-3 zone, and then also certain like he sat Miles Rice for the last two games, right?
Not didn't sit him for the whole game, but he
Didn't start.
didn't start right.
Yeah. So those sorts of changes, it didn't work out for him for tonight. But well, let me ask you this. I have no idea who's going to be the next coach. I think there's lots of good candidates out there. I just know that it's a hire that they have to get right.
Right.
And the coach needs and coach needs to come in and win right away. You look at this roster, you look at guys that could be back next year. Who do you consider to be a must return?
I would be surprised if a lot of guys return at all. I think that
Yeah. No, I agree with
in
you.
today's day and age, you could turn over a roster really, really quickly. And to me, that's something that you're going to see because of the resources that are involved here, kind of the scar tissue that can get built up during a season like this, where you have so many close calls. Uh, some guys, it's also going to be a situation where they want a fresh start. Mackenzie and Baco might want to get a fresh start somewhere. A guy like Bryson Tucker, I think that has a tremendous amount of potential. Uh, by now, he should be getting more minutes than he is. I would be surprised if Miles Rice is back. I'd be surprised if Kenny Carlisle is back. Malik Renew may look to move on. I don't know that for sure, but all the options are going to be on the table with these guys. And so,
But one thing Woodson
turn,
benefited from
go ahead.
one thing Woodson benefited from was having TJD come back that first year.
Yeah.
And I think that he rode that from year one into year two. And I don't think whoever comes in next year is going to have that sort of player that they're able to kind of continue to ride with.
Absolutely, and also Trace covered up some of Woody's shortcomings through those first 2 years as well.
Mm, yeah. Well, and I appreciate you doing this, buddy. It's always good to get a little bit of therapy out
That's what we're here
after
for.
this, and yeah, it's I want to see things get turned around. It's just frustrating that another March and this is where we're at as a fan base.
Yeah,
Um, I don't know if we can endure much more.
yeah, it's tough, but I appreciate you hanging in there and giving me a call. Thanks so much.
Care, bub.
All right, 812-393-2600 is the number. I will get to Mike Woodson's press conference in just a few minutes. Again, players were not made available after the game, which has become kind of the trend here. But we'll get to Woody in a second. But I have another caller on the line. Don't want to keep him there for the 5.5 minutes that Woody's on there. So, caller, if I could have your name, where you're from, and what you got.
This is Adam from Portland.
Hi, Adam. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Good.
So, a lot of people have talked tonight about next coaches, next season, things like that. I don't really want to get into that tonight. I guess my point in calling in tonight was just to talk a little bit about what seems to be a trend in this season's IU team, in that we go through these long stretches, typically in the first half, where we just get cornered. We can't hit a shot. We're scoreless,
Yeah.
and I disagree with Big Al, who called in earlier, that I do think this team has gone through stretches where I would have questioned their toughness. And certainly Goody has proven that he's probably the toughest guy on the team and doesn't take a lot of crap. Um, but they've fought back and they've got themselves in games. I mean, I thought we came out the second half tonight and looked really good. And then, we end up in these close games, and it seems like Indiana, when they're in a close game, within the last 5 minutes or something, they just can't finish it out. And to me, it doesn't seem like it's on the players. It seems like the players are playing hard. We had some bad breaks tonight with Mbako's offensive rebound, missed the putback. Rice kind of misses a shot from the bottom right. But to me, it seems like a lot of times it's squarely on end of game coaching situations, particularly after timeouts where we heard that Mike Woodson was so good at this. This is one of his strengths. Um, to me, it feels like it's his greatest weakness right now. And again, I don't know that I agree with Big Al and that these players aren't tough. I actually think they're playing pretty hard and fighting themselves back in games. I don't know why we get into these cold stretches. Like I said, particularly in the first half, we make it a close game. We make it a ball game. And UCLA bails us out with some missed free throws late. And we have every chance to win it, and it seems like we're just not putting our guys in the right positions to succeed late in games.
Well,
That's kind of why I wanted to call in.
I appreciate that. There's toughness, and then battling back. That doesn't maybe show toughness to me. I think that that is when the shot clock's winding down. What are you going to do? What are you going to make happen? Inconsistency makes it so that Indiana falls behind and goes through these long stretches where they don't score or can't make a shot or need to wait until the second half to wake up. And so what we see is inconsistency more than maybe toughness in my eyes, because that to me is something that is a little bit different. Uh, but I understand what you're saying, and the fact that they do continue to battle and fight, is part of the equation. But I just felt like he was talking about physical toughness and trying to pull the team together when things are going really bad. That's where your struggle is in the first half. In the second half, they've been a lot better.
I think maybe you've targeted something there. Maybe I'd change my tune a little bit. Is I think there's some heart to this team. I think it would have been really easy to quit on the season a couple
There you
weeks
go.
ago. I think it would have been really easy to quit when Woodson, when kind of the announcement gets made. But these kids still want to win. They still want to go out. And it seems like they're trying to compete, and just getting some bad breaks.
Yeah, you nailed it. Heart. That's exactly what it is. You have toughness on one hand, heart on the other, and yeah, no, I agree with that completely.
Yeah, and I think the stretches where we've seen lack of effort feel like those have kind of gone away a little bit. We know the players, we can name the players that we criticized early in the season for, maybe not playing good defense or taking plays off or things like that. And you haven't seen that as much lately, it seems like. I mean, there's been a few lapses here and there to be expected, but it seems like that part of it, like some guys are trying to get their act together, it seems like.
Yeah, this team has been more on the same page, especially in this game. They were more patient with the ball than they had been, and yet I think that is uh, again another one of those changes that we've talked about that didn't show up until after a coaching change is announced, and I think that's interesting.
Well, Ken, I'll let you get on to other things, but I appreciate you doing this. I appreciate you taking my call. I hope you have a great Valentine's Day, and I hope you have a good evening.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye. 812-393-2600 is the number. We had a caller before just talk about his wife and what she has put into the game. It's interesting, the women in our lives, the kind of stuff that they put up with. My wife, who was at the time my girlfriend during the IU's trip to the national championship game in '02. She really got connected to that team, got into it. She never knew about sports. She didn't care about sports. Did not believe me when the first time when I told her there was a team called the Golden State Warriors in the NBA. She'd never heard of it, and she thought it was a college team, and I was playing games with her. Uh, Instead, she got really connected to that IU team, and then when they lost, I remember driving home from the watch party that I had gone to, and she was in tears and angry at me because she's like, "I can't believe you did this to me, that you made me love this, and now this hurts so bad." And she's like, "I'll never do that again." You know what? She hasn't gotten connected to a team like that since then. Well, I'll go ahead and I'll bring you Mike Woodson, about 5.5 minutes of him during his post-game press conference. um, and we'll hit on something he's going to say in just a little bit, but first, here's Mike Woodson during his post-game press conference.
Start with Zach and then Niz.
Mike, it's kind of an obvious question, but just how do you sort of pull a team through a night like this where you have a lot of opportunities, you can't quite convert? It just kind of feels like every time the game's there for you to take, you just can't quite grab a hold of it with both hands. What's your message, I guess, after a game like this?
It's another tough loss. We executed, but we just didn't finish. I thought, after they missed the 1-and-1, we came back and got a good look. Mac got an offensive rebound, point blank layup, and we don't get it. And then we get a wide open three. Got exactly what we were looking for on the play. And that's a shot that he normally makes, and he just didn't make it.
Mike and then Daniel.
Yeah, Mike, with Miles Rice, you also moved him to the bench recently. Took a kind of a wild shot at the end there. But what has he not been able to kind of get in a groove for you or kind of find kind of the level that you want him to play at this season?
Well, again, the play wasn't – we didn't execute that particular play because that's not the play I drew up in timeout. So that was a botched play, but the ball ended up in his hands. And, you tell guys you're in the penalty, you got to take advantage of, your speed or whatever in terms of getting downhill. And he settled. But that didn't beat us. I mean, I look at the 5 points that we gave up within 2 possessions, an out-of-bounds play and then a point-blank straight drive where the guy got hit and he made the bucket. Those were 2 critical defensive stops that we couldn't come up with and still had a chance to win the game.
Yeah, Mike, when you mentioned just the lack of finish, it kind of seems like you all have lost a lot of close ones late. And when that late game execution isn't there for wide range of reasons, I want to say you guys started, I think, 4 seniors tonight. Is there a reason you can kind of point to for why you guys just haven't been able to really finish?
I wish I had the answer. I go back to the Northwestern game, the Maryland game, Purdue game, Michigan game. We all winnable games. And, if you win 1 or 2 of them, you're feeling good about yourself when you're in close games. And 9 out of 10 times you make the plays that you need to make. The fact that we've lost them, it's been guys are searching. I'm searching as the coach, in terms of trying to get them over the finish line. And, I'll never put it on the player. I take the responsibility. Even though I don't make the shots or miss the defensive assignments, it's still my job to get them over the hump.
Mike, speaking of the last 2 or 3 minutes of the game, was the shot selection where you wanted it to be? And also, how does UCLA's defense kind of influence shot selection? I mean, it's easy to say that, but how much do you kind of?
I mean, they are a good defensive team. They one of the top defensive teams in the Big Ten, and they get after you. And with all of that being said, I still thought we made the plays from a defensive standpoint. We just played so poorly the first half and spotted them 10 points, and they had a lot to do with that. But I thought we played Indiana basketball the second half and made plays coming down the home stretch, made free throws. They missed, 2 front ends of a 1-and-1 that kept us right where we needed to be. Then we get a great look from Mac based on a good executed play underneath out of bounds, and he just didn't make it.
Mike, how do you feel like the zone defense held up tonight? And I know you got away from that later in the game, but is that something you're going to continue sticking with, or just kind of going back and forth?
Well, I mean, again, I thought, there were times it didn't help. We just didn't play it right, and they exposed us some early on, and we got away from it. I thought our rotations tonight were off based on how we played it at Michigan State. And then too, they had big time shooters around the horn. So you got to pick and choose when you're playing teams that can shoot the ball from the perimeter when you're zoning up.
Coach, do these types of late losses sting a little bit more than some of the others?
Any loss stings. Anytime you lose, it hurts. And we, after coming off the Michigan State game, which was a great game for our young team, ball club, man, and then to come in and not finish tonight, it hurts, but we got a week to put this behind us and get ready for Purdue.
Last question.
Yeah, Coach, speaking of Purdue, you got a few days between now and then. What are key things you want to get in order going that game? And even though the record is where it is, Purdue, IU obviously is big anytime. What's the opportunity like to give these guys?
Well, again, I mean, we battled our butts off at West Lafayette. I mean, and they're sitting at the top of the Big Ten for a reason. And, we got a week to work and prepare and get ready for them because, they're playing well. And, we've had our ups and downs, but we just got a week to see where we are and get ready to toss it up next weekend.
So that was Mike Woodson during his post-game press conference. 812-393-2600 is the number. The lines are open, and I wanted to just mention, to talk about that whole exchange there, and I put it on the chat where at one point he says, it was a botched play. The players didn't execute it right, or that was the gist of it. Players didn't execute it right, and then a couple minutes later says, "I'll never put it on the player. I take responsibility." You put it on the player all the time. After the Maryland game, you said that it was Miles Rice didn't execute the play correctly. At the Purdue game, it was Miles Rice didn't. Couldn't get his attention to call a timeout when he could have called a timeout himself. It begs the question, too, at this point, why in the hell is Miles Rice in the game if you continue to have situations where he's botching plays? You could say, you know what, Miles Rice is going ahead and making mistakes on the court, but it's also up to the coach on who you're going to have on the floor. And so he keeps doing this. You want to talk about inconsistency? He's inconsistent on how he handles on the things that he says, and it leaks over into the program along the way because it's inconsistent every time out. Indiana scores 25 points in the first half today, 43 in the second half. Inconsistency. And that's the bottom line on this thing. In the first half, they shoot 32.1%. In the second half, Indiana makes 47% of its shots. And yeah, you can have ebbs and flows in games. That's fine. That happens. But it's something that happens game over game over game. It's a trend. And that's how it works. Luke Goody had a couple of points in the first half, had a great second half. Great that you bounce back, but you need consistency, and it's just frustrating to watch. 812-393-2600 is the number here at 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Valentine's Day. So if you're joining us, I'm thrilled that you're here. Troika says we can't shoot threes or defend threes, and that's something that the Michigan State game, Indiana matched up well with Michigan State because Michigan State can't shoot threes. They're the worst shooting three-point team in the Big Ten. That's one of the reasons why they weren't burned by that. Gritty says, and yet they keep shooting threes. Woodson is ruining his legacy, and that one is interesting to me because I think there's going to end up being a kind of a separation with that. Younger people will remember this as the legacy. Older fans will remember his playing days. It's kind of like Patrick Ewing at Georgetown and how he's revered as a player at Georgetown, but they remember as a coach that didn't work out. I think that's going to be what Mike Woodson ultimately is going to end up being. It's a downside of a former player coming back, especially when it doesn't work out like this. Jason on the chat says it's February 14th. How realistic is it that we're going to have some sort of solidifying information or have a new coach before the first part of April? All these candidates have jobs, and that I agree with you completely, Jason, because that is the case. These guys are going to be playing in the NCAA tournament, things like that. I would suspect, you get to the second weekend of the tournament, things will really be heating up at that point because maybe your guys will be will suffered upsets or may not make it to the second weekend. That is pretty important. John says he'll be remembered for his poor coaching. By some, yeah, he will. People who cheered for him and remembered him as a player, he's right on the cusp of my IU memory of watching players. It was 1980 is kind of there. 81 is when I really locked in. I'm 51 years old, and so 1980, I didn't turn 7 until the December of that year. So this is I more remember just like glimpses of him for that. So, and plus then in 81 they win a national championship and he's not here. So that's just how that goes. Let's get into some of the individuals here. individual numbers for the Hoosiers. They're led in scoring by Mackenzie Mbako, 14 points on 6 of 7. Or I'm sorry, they're led by scoring by Luke Goody, 16 points on 6 of 13 shooting. 2 of 9 from 3-point range, though, for Luke Goody. He added 7 rebounds and an assist, along with 3 steals in 37 minutes. When he's hot, he's hot. When he's not, he's not. And those 2 threes, I think, came right at the start of the second half, too, and then he faded out. Mackenzie Mbako, 14 points on 6 of 17 shooting, also 2 of 9 from 3-point range. And Goody could knock down threes. Mackenzie could knock down threes. When they combine to go 4 of 18 on a night, that's a problem. You're going to have a tough time winning ball games. Mbako finished with 4 rebounds and an assist in 26 minutes. You have Umar Ballo, 9 points on 2 of 5 shooting, 5 of 7 from the free throw line, 5 rebounds, a block, and a steal in 26 minutes. He was -6 on in the plus minus. Interesting thing about Ballo is really for the first real time, he got played by a couple of bigs that he couldn't handle. He couldn't muscle his way around UCLA's bigs, and he faced a guy who's much bigger than him. In the Spanish kid from the guy from Spain, what's his name here? It's Ade Mara, 7 foot 3 inches tall. He stood up from the bench. I was like, wow, that's a big dude. He had 8, and the Mara kid had 8 points, and he missed a dunk along the way. And again, I keep coming back to that. Look, Mbako missed a point blank shot. They've had some other things happen, but UCLA missed two shots right at the rim in the first half, and they also missed a dunk in the first half. Indiana also benefited twice from balls being tipped away from players and landing right in Malik Renew's hands, and scored. So Indiana had a lot of chances and had a lot of stuff go their way, and still couldn't manage to pull out the victory. You have 5 points from Trey Galloway, 5 points on 2 of 7 shooting, 1 of 5 from 3-point range, 6 rebounds, 6 assists versus 3 turnovers in 37 minutes. Galloway was up and down like he tends to be, up and down. Hey, there's nothing unusual there. Anthony Leal, 2 points on 1 of 3 shooting, 2 rebounds and an assist, and 3 steals in 20 minutes from Leal. Off the bench, Malik Renew, 14 points on 5 of 7 shooting. UCLA did a really nice job, at times frustrating him, because Malik almost exclusively goes to his left shoulder, almost exclusively. And UCLA was taking it away from him really effectively, forced him to travel in the first half because of one of those things where they got in his way and they disrupted him. It is, he is almost exclusively left shoulder, and teams know it, and they're trying to take it away from him. He added 3 rebounds and a couple of turnovers in 21 minutes, and he just looked a step slow tonight, too. Miles Rice, 5 points on 2 of 8 shooting, 1 rebound. He had an assist, played 24 minutes, was -6. And again, Rice wants the ball in his hands late in games, and you need a guy who's willing to do that. But if you're going to be that guy, you damn well better perform. And he doesn't. So he takes the shots. You fire up a long 2, do something like that. That to me is kind of the frustrating part of what Miles Rice brings to the floor. Kenny Carlisle, 3 points in 4 minutes, just popped in, and Woodson hasn't been asked about Carlisle. Since he doesn't do pregame stuff anymore, you can't ask about Carlisle. Carlisle really hasn't been missed, and he took made some bad decisions while he was on the floor in his 4 minutes. So there's that. And finally, Bryson Tucker played 5 minutes, didn't record a single stat, but was -7 while he was out there, and he never came back. Tucker's the guy that his talent intrigues me, but he just has never looked comfortable out here. And Mike Woodson doesn't give him a ton of time either. He is a kid that I feel is extremely talented, but he just doesn't have any kind of comfort level on the floor. That's from a lack of opportunities. Indiana shoots 40.3% on the night, just 7 of 29 from 3-point range, and ended up getting out rebounded by 3 by UCLA, 36-33. Indiana only had 8 turnovers on the night. So that's a positive. Indiana has done a good job of taking care of the basketball, but they haven't defended the 3. They missed their last 4 shots. Made only 1 of their last 8, and that's how you make it so that you can't close out a game. Plus, you dig yourself a 10-point hole in the first half. That's really bottom line on this thing. 812-393-2600 is the number on the chat. Derby says watching Renew jog back on defense the entire first half is just about enough to bring up a little vomit. Effort is I tell my second and third grade team that I coach, when I coach the kindergarten teams, I said effort's the one thing you can control. You can always try hard, and you can always bust your butt. And there have been multiple guys that just have poor effort along the way. And for some of these guys, they've played too much basketball to have that be a problem. So you're not wrong. Right there. Derby says shot 23% from 3 and chucked up 30 of them. UCLA was giving them shots. They had opportunities. They weren't falling. And again, when 18 of those 29 shots come from your 2 best 3-point shooters, you feel like you have a chance. And they weren't falling, which again is a weird thing because you're playing at home. You're on the road, it's a different environment. That's different background. You're not used to it. Here, you should be knocking them down. And that, with Goody, he struggled earlier in the year. He's been shooting lights out in the Big Ten. A concern of mine on that is water always finds its level, and he's a good shooter, don't get me wrong. But it is when you're hot, you're going to have a cooling off period, and that's something that kind of seems to, say, at least very much so, it happened today with that. But 18 of the 29 came from Mbako and Goody, and I don't know that there's a lot of complaints about that. Now the interesting thing for Indiana is you're looking at a situation where they don't play a game for 9 days. Their next game is here at Simon Scott Assembly Hall against Purdue on a week from Sunday. And it's going to be a big game, obviously. There's no question about that. They played them very tough at Purdue. And this crowd who, again, one thing I'll say is this much. This is a crowd that is really supporting the team. They're not happy with the results. They're certainly not happy with the coaching that has been done. But they have supported the team. And that is something I think is the right thing to do. As if you're an IU fan, you support the team. You want them to win, and you don't turn on them. This is a group that they have not turned on this team. Against Illinois, they turned on this team. But the whole time they have really, really fought to back this team and supported the Hoosiers as well as they could, but they haven't been able to go home happy in a while. They got the win over Michigan State, but again, since late January, basically the month of February has been not good. Not good at all. And you have Purdue, a Purdue team that knows that it knows how tough Indiana was at West Lafayette. But as these losses build, it takes its toll on a team mentally. And these losses are coming on the road. They're coming at home. And so the fact that there are 9 days before the next game is going to be really, really important because it does give this team an opportunity to kind of reset. The question is, are they going to reset in a way that's going to make a difference? Because, again, the coach is going to be different next year. You have plenty of guys that know they probably won't be here, depending on who that coach is. Already, Indiana has had a problem with I never turned the camera back on. How about that? Sorry about that, everybody. Uh, they've already had a problem with playing too often as five guys instead of a team on the floor, and you wonder if that will continue to build along the way. 812-393-2600 is the number. Give you a last call for phone calls here, as we are quarter to 12 on Valentine's Day. Let you get started with your weekend, because this is a game that we've seen over and over and over again. And yeah, Indiana has come close on a number of occasions, but they're having problems getting over the hump. What they did at Michigan State by holding on and winning that one, Michigan State, Indiana made free throws late, and Michigan State also missed some opportunities along the way, but it still was a positive to get the victory. At this point, though, you're 15-11 overall. You're 6-9 in conference. You're running out of opportunities. Your NCAA tournament chances are on life support at best. Beating a team like UCLA would have helped that. Try to keep that alive a little bit longer. Beating a team like Purdue would help tremendously. And then you're talking about having Penn State here as well. It's 3 straight home games for the Hoosiers. You have that. Indiana beat Penn State on a neutral court. I know it goes down as a road game, but they were at the Palestra, which is 2 hours away from the Penn State campus. You have Penn State that brings its own set of trouble. Then you got to Washington and Oregon to open March before you come back here and finish with Ohio State on senior night. So what you're talking about is having 3 more home games, a couple on the road before the Big Ten tournament starts. These losses build. They wear on a team time and time again. 1-point loss to Maryland. You have a 5-point loss to Purdue. You have a 3-point loss to Michigan. You have a 4-point loss to UCLA. These things build, and that's the concern for me as we go down the stretch here. But this is in Indiana. John says, please don't say hump. We hear it too much already. Yeah, get him over the hump. That's a verbal tick of Mike Woodson that he will be remembered for here for sure. There's different coaches have different things. Tom Crean had to look at the tape. That was his verbal tick. You had Kevin Wilson would talk about guys they were never injured. They had a deal or a gig, and he would do this with his hands. That's kind of what he would do. Mike Woodson talks about the hump. That's how it is. But in this one, different game, same story. Hoosiers 72-68 losers to UCLA, which played in Bloomington for the first time since 1956. Didn't get to hear what the players had to say afterwards because players have stopped coming in. I know Mike Woodson has stopped talking to Don Fisher in the pregame or postgame, for that matter. And that is upsetting a lot of people. And they should be upset because that's incredibly disrespectful to Don Fisher, who has meant more to IU basketball than Mike Woodson did. And Mike Woodson's been head coach and was a Big Ten Player of the Year and played here. And I'm telling you, Fish means more to IU basketball than Mike Woodson. So you give the man his props. He deserves it. But Woody's going to Woody. That's what he's going to do. Again, happy Valentine's Day to everybody out there. And I appreciate you joining me here late on a Friday night. Look forward to you being able to enjoy your weekend without worrying about an Indiana loss, because that's over, and you got all week next week. Hoosiers next play at 1:30 p.m. tip-off February 23rd here at Simon Scott Assembly Hall. Take on the Purdue Boilermakers in an atmosphere that should be great. Should be great given what we've seen from this fan base, given the disappointments over the years or over the year. I really am looking forward to that one because I think it's going to be a great atmosphere. And of course, always check Peegs.com for all the coverage brought to you by our guides, and also just all the coaching coverage. You can have nobody's more connected when it comes to IU basketball than Jeff Rabjohns, and Rabby is constantly working the phones. He's got 2 phones that he works with, and he gives it his all. I tell you that one. But for now, at Simon Scott Assembly Hall, IU 72-68 losers to the UCLA Bruins, and now have some time off to regroup. We'll see if they can do it. Well, that's all the time we have on the Peegs postgame live. I want to thank you for listening, and I want to remind you to visit Peegs.com for the very best in IU football and basketball coverage we're going to find anywhere. Nobody covers Hoosier recruiting better than Jeff Rabjohns, Matt Weaver, Trevor Andershock, and Jared Kelly. So come be a part of a thriving and excited community at Peegs.com. Folks, you are not going to be disappointed. Folks, we're out of time, but for now, and for Jeff, Matt, Trevor, and Jared, I'm Ken Bykoff saying thanks for listening, everybody.